people that have seen things like the recent, Scan Pyramids project and that sort of data when they found that new chamber in the Great Pyramid and stuck a little camera in there to take a look. That was all released by the Department of Antiquities in Egypt in partnership with the people that were actually doing the work.
When did they find a new chamber in the Great Pyramid?
Oh, you haven't heard this? It's been going on for a couple of years now. There's been the Scan Pyramids project is what it's called. They're essentially using muon cosmology, or it's basically cosmic ray detection. So they put all these sensors, and I've seen them a bunch of times because I've been into the pyramid over this period of time several times. And down in the subterranean chamber, there's like a rack full of gear, and there's these boxes up on the Grand Gallery and in the Queen's Chamber, like the parts that you can't normally get to, that average tourist won't be able to get to. You need to book a special permission to see. There's a lot of this infrastructure, and so what they're doing is there's these cosmic rays and muons in this case are passing through. They pass through material, they pass through stone and everything like that. But there is a sort of a very slight difference when they pass through material versus a void. So they put these detectors in there and they leave them for a couple of years, and they've got them on the outside as well. So they're measuring it kind of from all these different angles, and putting all that data together and crunching it has let them kind of put together a rough picture of where they think there are voids inside the pyramid. Right, so these are like empty spaces, and one of them was a small empty space above the main entrance. So the main entrance is above where we go in today. So today, when you visit the pyramid, you go up on that north side, and you enter in through what's known as Al Mamun's Hole, or Mamun's Hole. It's supposedly been hammered by the Caliph Al Mamun, and he sort of hammered through the limestone superstructure of the pyramid, and he hit the junction between the ascending and descending passageway.
Okay.
But up above that, and you can see that in those chevron blocks. So the descending passageway actually goes all the way up to a doorway that's below those two triangle-shaped chevron blocks in that center top picture. Yeah, that one. So there's a doorway there. That's considered the original main entrance to the pyramid. Now, this was all in antiquity still cased over, so this wasn't visible. At some point, it was certainly opened in antiquity. Al Mamun wasn't the first one in there, but it's actually where the void is above that, sort of behind those chevrons. There's a small chamber, and they either drilled a hole or they found a space where they could stick a little tube in and then put one of those little snake cameras in there, and they had a look around, and sure enough, there's this space, and it was a big the scientists reveal hidden corridor. I mean, this is this little chamber, and it's got these chevron blocks. It's like those chevron blocks keep going back into the superstructure of the pyramid, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere. But we don't know that because often some of these passages would be blocked up. That was certainly the case with the ascending passageway that comes off the descending passageway has these big granite plug blocks in it. But the really interesting part of this Scan Pyramids project is that they found a massive void in the pyramid. A really large void. Like, this is a tiny little space that they've looked at, but if you've seen the layout of the pyramid in the area above the Grand Gallery, it's kind of above and I think a little bit to the right. They've found indication for what is just a huge chamber. Now it's something like 40 meters long.
Which one is the Grand Gallery there?
So it's that large angled piece on the right. See it's the one that's just to the right of the King's Chamber. It's the angled down like
I see
tall.
It. Okay, towards the top.
Yeah. So it connects so the descending passageway is the passageway that goes down to that kind of isn't to scale that picture. That's
right. Okay.
That's not even actually. I don't know. That's not the architecture for the pyramid. Mm-hmm. That's Pharaoh Osmos. That's a completely sort of different. Yeah, that's not the actual pyramid.
Okay.
That's like there's a lot of chambers that aren't there on that map. But it's a huge. Yeah, that's probably.
That's a
picture.
Sick diagram.
Yeah, this is probably a little closer to reality. I probably have a picture too, but there you go.
Is it obvious to you when you go in the pyramids that these things were made for people to walk through?
No, not at all. It doesn't feel at all that way. I actually think I don't think they were made for humans, put it that way. And I don't think they were tombs either. They certainly, I mean, this would not have been an easy space to take some sort of formal procession of Pharaoh's body into these places. It's ridiculously difficult to move around in them today, and we've added steps and handrails. It's a difficult exercise for anyone. Just the the passages are like 3.5 feet high and feet square. So you do this pyramid crouch thing. They're on a pretty steep angle, going up and down. The longest passage is like 300 feet or something. The descending passageway that goes down to the subterranean chamber, and it's quite an exercise getting out of there. And I can only imagine how difficult that might have been without the modern steps and handrails that we've put in there to help people. It's not an easy task at all. And then you get into spaces like the Grand Gallery. I mean, that thing there's so many indications in there that had some sort of function. It's outrageous. There's all these slots on the side of the walls. It's as if there was a mechanism moving up and down. I know there's architects and proposals that suggest this was almost like a sliding lever room that they would use to haul blocks up and do things like this. I'm not convinced. Chris Dunn has his theories about that those slots might have been used to house like series of Helmholtz resonators that were part of this whole pyramid machine that he proposes. I'm interested in any functional take on it. I don't have one personally. I get the indication from being in there that it feels like a machine, man. It feels like you're walking around in the guts of a machine. It's just what it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's meant for humans. You can see the stairs and the handrails on this, but this is the Grand Gallery.
Oh, wow.
It's like...
How big is that?
It's huge. It's probably about 40 meters long, and God, it must be 4 or 5 meters tall at the very top. It steps up. It has that stepped sort of, it narrows as it goes taller. And along the edges of the walls, you have these slots. At the very bottom of it, you go straight, and that goes to the chamber known as the Queen's Chamber. And at the top, you go straight through an antechamber and then into the granite structure known as the King's Chamber. So the void that they found, however, is actually above this, and it's equivalent in size. So more or less equivalent. It's something like 40 meters long, 4 meters wide, and potentially 4 meters tall. They're not quite sure if it's angled or if it's straight, but and they kind of proved their mechanism and their procedure with the first void. Like they did their scans and they said there's probably a void right here, and this one's right near the front entrance. And sure enough, they drill a hole in there. They stick their little camera in there, and like, there it is. We found this void. So there's a very, very high likelihood that there's a void there. There's undiscovered chambers inside the Great Pyramid. So who knows what that will reveal? And I very much hope that if it is explored or plumbed, or they drill into it to take a look, that it's data that's shared with everybody, because it feels like this is, everybody's history in this monument.